changing. You know, quote, vaccinated people are supposed to resume wearing masks as they contract and spread the virus, yet unvaccinated people are still strongly urged to get the shot.
Like this.
They're said to be
highly
effective.
Look at this one.
How can both those claims be true?
Yeah, that looks cool. This looks
just
cool.
It's a paradox, right?
Can you get that?
It's so things more intelligent.
Wait.
Vaccine people are supposed to resume masks now because they can spread and catch it, right?
Hey, it's fine.
Yet the other person
that's like the ones that you can get when you need landmark tokens and research.
Even though once they get that shot and are supposed to be protected, they then have to wear masks because
I want to be
they
this
can
guy.
catch it.
Look at.
So they're supposed to be highly
being cursed bag man.
effective at reducing symptoms, so you don't go to
This
the hospital,
guy.
except that's not what's happening.
This guy.
It's really nice to go
I want to be someone else.
Right? It is a big misconception, a big lie.
Oh, I like this guy.
It's easy to point out. That's what common sense looks like. And have those statements at the same time. Point out at the very end, the point is, he's saying don't shun the previously infected. Now in this article, he goes over the difference between mucosal immunity versus internal immunity. Worth reading. But he says, if vaccines are going to be mandated, make exceptions for those who have recovered from COVID-19, since their natural mucosal immunity, which is the one we should be shooting for, puts them, quote, at less risk than never infected, vaccinated people of spreading the virus. That is incredible. People running around
Hello guys, welcome to Spider-Man.
Or, by the way, again, even people who have been previously infected, but then got the injection, because don't forget, it is removing the antibodies from your blood.
COVID-19 vaccine, you're going to want to listen to this. The Red Cross says anyone who received their COVID-19 vaccine cannot donate convalescent plasma to help other COVID-19 patients in hospitals. That plasma is made up of antibodies from people who have recovered from the virus, but the vaccine wipes out those antibodies, making the convalescent plasma ineffective in treating other COVID-19 patients.
Pretty clear, right? And that's exactly why this makes sense. So people who are being injected less protected than people who have natural immunity. It's damn simple, and that's what all the scientific research right this moment completely backs up. Now let's go into some new stuff real quick. Well, there's one first, and then a couple of other ones after this clip that you've seen before. Neutralizing and this is from RxIV, the preprint platform. Neutralizing antibody responses to SARS-CoV-2 in a COVID-19 recovered patient cohort and their implications. April 20th. All the way back in April 2020. This stuff's been around. All these people that keep acting like we don't know for sure, we still got to wait on the research to find out if there is that, they keep lying. Same thing in regard to the waning immunity. It could last a real long time. That's not true. Everything shows you that for 6 months at most, after 3 months, you're no longer fully injected, which is proved to you again today based on this archived version of the site that just got taken down again. Or for the first time, but they removed that one from St. Louis that we just showed you. The next day, I swear, we talk about something and boom, things get removed. But, it says, back in April 20th, 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic caused, I wanted to point this out first. This is the same thing I was just saying before. So here's a study, how neutralizing antibodies after people who have recovered. So you don't need to make any political statements, just state the fact. But the first sentence, because they know they're funding, and whether or not this gets pulled by the editor for ridiculous reasons, depends on whether they look like they're leaning into one narrative or another, because everything is political today. So, here is what they say first. The COVID-19 pandemic caused by SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus threatens the global public health. It's even in there. It's the narrative setting. It should start here, currently. No, but this is because they want. Oh, don't worry, we're on your side. Don't censor us. We want it. Even though our findings seem to suggest what you don't want us to show. Just we know it's dangerous. COVID bad, right? And it's ridiculous. Forward. Now, neutralizing antibodies, or NABS, in that's the acronym. It says plasma collected, blood collected from 175 COVID-19 recovered patients with mild symptoms were screened.
Time to grab a snapshot.
SARS-CoV-2 specific antibodies. Neutralizing antibodies were detected in patients from day 10 to 15 after the onset of the disease and remained thereafter. The titers of the neutralizing antibodies among these patients correlated with the spike RBD and S2 regions. Elderly and middle-aged patients had significantly higher plasma neutralizing antibody titers and spike-binding antibodies than younger patients. Isn't that interesting? here's the problem. Here's what makes me so upset about that one point. They're showing you that the people who are at most risk have larger amounts of antibodies, significantly more from a natural infection, to be treated early.
I haven't done much
If
photography
they were
since
to
quitting
be
the
dealt
Bugle.
with natural
God, how much I
the
enjoy
injection
it.
scenario, where we're seeing that's actually
The marks to
hurting
shoot.
people over 50, 60 far more, where they're the ones that have the least effectiveness, and in fact it's causing the most problems. Isn't that interesting? So just like we said before, what they're telling them to do is creating the danger for them, whereas this scenario seems to suggest that it's smarter, which is exactly what the Great Barrington Declaration and a lot of the groups have said. That we should control the situation, help these people, treat them with things like whatever you want to think is the good anaphylactic kind of scenario before they get really bad, and it would create a better lasting scenario.
Okay, got some time
One
to
thing
kill.
is out there. Now again, just to reiterate this clip that we've played many times, important, so I don't have to take all the time, that we realize to set the table with the...
Whee!
That's not the only thing download it, looks like. Do it here again. I wanted to download that. It didn't work. I want to play the natural immunity clip real quick. Weird. Anyway, here it is on Instagram again. The reason I want to play it again, it's only a couple minutes. I want to play this so people who haven't seen it can see that we have the groundwork for the natural immunity discussion before we go into the new stuff, right? And this is important. This is bulk of the studies, and by the way, the link is right here in the notes, which has all the links to all the natural immunity studies. Here's some new stuff. Here's one from Cell Reports Medicine.
Do you want something that can project anything you're doing on your phone?
Guess what? With persistent antibody responses and memory B and T cells. Just slam dunk. This was, where was it? Right here. This is from July 20th, 2021. Lancet. June 1st. SARS-CoV-2 elicits robust adaptive immune responses, regardless of the disease severity, according to what they tell you. Overall, the majority of patients have robust adaptive immune responses, regardless of the disease severity. Also, the NIH from January 26, 2021, telling you massive immunity found after COVID-19. All the people we're supposed to be listening to, right? Here's Nature, most trusted scientific publication, May 26, 2021. So at COVID, you probably make antibodies for a lifetime. Bone marrow cells that can churn out antibodies for decades. You might probably make antibodies for the rest of your life. And here's the WHO telling you, in 4 weeks,
Cool.
90 to 99% of individuals who've been infected have detectable antibodies. Remember, that's regardless of whether it is severe, regardless of disease severity. So if not up to 99% of people, regardless of how severe, do have these antibodies, and they can something that can last the rest of your life.
Later, Spider-Man.
And this most recent peer-reviewed study
Say hi to my kid.
is you consider durable or robust. This is huge, July 26th. On top of that, here's one from March 15th that adds something even more important. Regardless of any of what we just told you, a majority of uninfected adults, people that have not even been infected with COVID-19, show pre-existing antibody reactivity. So a misunderstanding this, and it comes from the Lancet, it comes from NIH, comes from Nature, comes from WHO, comes from a peer-reviewed scientific research, and it just gets absurd if they're pretending this isn't there. Great work. Again, Paul, for those that see it a lot, I appreciate your patience. It's, every time we play this, by the way, every time there's somebody in the chat that goes like, oh man, like, there's always, and remember guys, our goal here is to reach those new people. That's what we're here for. Now standing on the shoulders of that, the quick overview, we have to remember that there's a lot more that shows you this. The one we just showed you is an important one. From way back in the beginning of this, showing you that they're very clearly out of the gate realizing that you've got neutralizing antibodies that last after that, right, that remain thereafter. And that older people seem to have a lot better. And then going forward, here's Sweden. Team Sweden Unlocked says if natural immunity is superior to vaccine immunity, which it is, and this increasingly looks to be the case based on all the peer-reviewed research from Lancet, the WHO, Nature, all the ones that all the people in the mainstream are ignoring right now. Just so embarrassing, isn't it? Like they're blatantly ignoring that stuff.
Hi, Mr.
They're acting like we know for sure.
This is about the rent.
He is incredibly well positioned to move forward. And whatever is happening in Israel right now does not bode well for countries with low natural immunity. Exactly. And of course, and I pointed this out, of course, the cowards at Twitter,
Yeah.
the cowards at Twitter placed this under environmentalism. Everything they can do to hide the example Sweden sent it to the world. Wasn't a joke, by the way. They're talking about natural immunity, and they're well aware of what they're getting into here. Environmentalism? Come on. It's ridiculous. But here's some more information going the other direction. Showing you this is decreased breadth of the antibody response to the spike protein of SARS-CoV-2 after injections. This is August 14th. Right? So not only do we have the obvious body of evidence showing us that you have lasting immunity, robust lasting immunity, along with T-cell, a lot of the stuff we've already mentioned, that are the T-cell reactivity in regard to whether you're infected or not. A majority of people, uninfected or not, have antibody reactivity. Other discussion was even T-cell and memory B, and we talked about all of these things that are being peer-reviewed science is coming out right now and showing you this stuff, and on the other side of it, we can see that it's actually hurting you, or actually removing these things. It says here, we have used a highly sensitive and reliable flow cytometry method to measure the titers of antibodies of the immunoglobulin G1 isotype in blood of volunteers after receiving 1 or 2 doses of the injection being administered in Spain. Found significant differences in the titer of anti-S antibodies produced after the dose of the vaccine. Most important, they found a relative reduction in the reactivity after the second boosting immunization. They saw a relative reduction in reactivity after the second injection, guys. These data allow to make a comparison, different injections in terms of anti-S antibody generation, and cast doubts about the convenience of repeatedly immunizing with the same S protein sequence. Decrease in antibodies after the second dose. Now what they're saying is it casts doubts on the concept of repeatedly boosting people. It's 14. On a preprint survey. There's another one, same thing. March 8th. Anti-spike protein assays to determine post-vaccination antibody levels. A head-to-head comparison of 5 quantitative S assays. Reliable quantification of the antibody response to SARS-CoV-2 vaccination is highly relevant for identifying possible vaccine failure and estimating the time of protection. So is that clear? So do we have reliable quantification of the antibody response? No. I wonder why. Well, because that's highly relevant for identifying possible vaccine failure, and that's what they don't want you to see. Make sense? Therefore, we aim to evaluate the performance of 5 different anti-SARS-CoV-2 antibody assays regarding the quantification of anti-spike antibodies induced after a single dose of the biotech Pfizer injection. 69 SARS-CoV-2 individuals, okay? 10% of them, negative SVNT result, is a surrogate virus neutralization test, which quantifies the antibody-mediated, it's a quantification, okay? So here, samples were reliably identified by most assays and yielded low binding antibody levels. 10% of everybody in the study, which is a microcosm of the larger picture. So we could argue that that means 10% of people taking these things have a negative SVNT result with low binding antibody levels. Percent of people, right? So that's just one discussion here, not even to do with whether you get breakthroughs or whether any number of other things we're talking about. So this is from March 8th. The line is there's a lot of scientific research out there that suggests that this is by far less accurate, less effective, less everything that they're trying to shove down your throat. Percent of people. Here is expose. New study finds billions of vaccinated people are at risk, at real risk of suffering, what do you know, antibody-dependent enhancement. This is the study that we've already shown you. I just wanted to reiterate this in the context that we're talking about today. So daily expose, citing the link right there for you to check out. Doing a great job. Here's the study. This is what we went over this in a recent show. Infection-enhancing anti-SARS-CoV-2 antibodies recognize both the original Wuhan strain and Delta variants. A potential risk for mass vaccination. That's the argument they make is that if you make an injection based on the original strain, which is what they've done, remember, I keep showing you, Moderna was already working on this injection 2 days after getting a genetic sequence from China, even though they didn't isolate it. All on the record. So, they make something based on this, and that's what everybody else did too. And then we have another variant out there, which remember, as I'll show you in a minute as well, new information, people who have natural immunity are not affected by any of these things. If you bake an injection off the original strain and deal with something coming up, a new variant, that was, by the way, caused by the injections in the context of this whole situation, creates antibody-dependent enhancement. And that's what they're finding. As, in conclusion, antibody-dependent enhancement may occur in people receiving vaccines based on the original Wuhan strain, either mRNA or viral. That's important, because it's all based on the spike protein, and then exposed to a Delta variant. Why is nobody talking about this? This seems to be, this is on the Journal of Infection, highly prominent location, reviewed research, right? It literally finds very clearly that exactly the situation we're in right this moment can cause antibody-dependent enhancement. Did CNN and Fox just miss this? Where's Tucker? Right? Why aren't they calling this out? I think that's pretty ridiculous. Because it's not, they don't just get to talk about what they want to. It's August 9th, 2021. So we'll get to it soon. I'm sure a couple of people will see my show and probably hear about it next week. But here is what we keep telling you about. Antibody-dependent enhancement. Fact checkers are ignoring what this study, which I've shown you many times, pointing a specific and significant risk of antibody-dependent enhancement. This is just a clip you can see right here from March 21st, or actually December 4th, 2020, peer-reviewed March 21st, March 2021. Informed consent disclosure. It says the specific and significant COVID-19 risk of antibody-dependent enhancement should have been and should be prominently and independently disclosed. It wasn't. That's 2020, guys. Who said this? And in fact, this Mr. MZ Dog guy here was like, "Oh, fake news." More than once, by the way. Do they not know it's there? It's absolutely ridiculous. This has been there. They knew this was there, and even this peer-reviewed study said they know it's there, and they need to tell people it's there, otherwise they're not meeting informed consent. Nobody cares. Now we have even another study saying, yep, it's still there, and in fact, now that we got the Delta in the mix, well, now it's even worse, right? Great. Fake news, though, right? Don't forget that. We're fake news. James Weiler, also fake news, Mr. PhD, doing a great job, by the way. Make sure you check out his IPAC website where you can learn about this stuff. He can teach you how to read scientific studies and so on. He says, I'm certain that this is a huge part. The person says, correct. They will die of antibody-dependent enhancement. COVID won't touch them. He says, I'm certain this is a huge part of the bias in the U.S. data. Vaxxed people dying from COVID infections but being given alternative diagnoses is a high likelihood. Antibody-dependent enhancement and pathogenic priming manifest with symptoms that are non-pulmonary. Just like everything else, guys. They're going to go, we don't know. You know that this is a significant and specific risk that we've already told you about. And we know that they're telling you exactly the circumstances we're in now can lead to it. But yet, and by the way, as he points out, we know that it will lead to things that won't be necessarily associated with COVID-19, and yet they keep going, we don't know for sure, because they don't care to know. It's an easy sidestep. He's a PhD that knows very well about this stuff and is very, very clearly telling you that this is a possibility. I think it's absolutely happening right now. From August 18th, BioRxiv, which is also a preprint location, a drug candidate for treating adverse reactions caused by pathogenic antibodies inducible by COVID-19 virus vaccines. Don't worry about it, though. Don't worry about the thing they're telling you isn't happening, because they're already making a drug to stop the thing that's not actually happening. Okay? Exactly like the burial thing. No one's dying from these injections totally safe and effective, and we've said it's all been proven safe and effective. But if they do die from the thing that's not happening, we'll cover the burial costs. $75 million worth, but it's actually fake news. Okay. Makes perfect sense. Antibody-dependent enhancement hasn't been proven. We're not sure, except we're already working on drugs to treat that exact thing that we keep telling you isn't happening. This is the clown world that we're in. They're profiting from the cause of the problem, or they're profiting from the problem that they're creating, and then that will create a problem. They'll profit from that. It's like every other pharma drug. It's made this way, guys. Disgusting. Of course, a lot of people are framing this as, oh, the Chinese researchers, it's all China profiting. Come on, guys. We got to be smarter than this. I can almost promise you that there's U.S. funding in here somewhere. right? There's a constant crossover between other people in the world. Maybe not even U.S., maybe it's the UK, maybe it's France. There's more going on here than just China versus the U.S. and left versus right in their childish two-party paradigm, guys. No way saying China's on anybody's side. They're bad news. China's government is bad news. I believe they're all leading you in this direction. This says, in a recent study, we reported that certain anti-spike antibodies of COVID-19 and SARS-CoV-2 viruses can have a pathogenic effect through binding to sick lung epithelium cells and misleading immune responses to attack cells. That's like verbatim what we keep telling you. The term, this new pathogenic mechanism, I love that they just make up a different term. Antibody-dependent auto attack. You mean antibody-dependent enhancement? Yeah. The study explores a drug candidate for prevention and treatment of this problem.
Of elites and Hollywood scum and others trafficking in children. And the Clintons have been caught smuggling children out of Haiti, and so is the UN. The list goes on and on. But now it's finally all over the news, even in the New York Times, that the CIA, starting around the time that Obama got into office, began, wait for this, to supply little boys to the Afghan warlords. I think that's part of the culture in Afghanistan, is pedophilia. And that they would even put pedophiles in charge on purpose because they controlled them. The same thing MI6 and MI5 have done in England. The same thing the CIA has been doing here to corrupt people and take over different institutions, like the Catholic Church, like Penn State. The list goes on and on. It is pedophilia that binds these people together in their corruption. And look at this report. CIA officers kept Afghan warlords dependent on the agency by giving them Viagra to rape young boys. That's an interesting headline, but that to me is a sub-angle of this. In the government reports, this is now confirmed, they're not denying it, they chose to place pedophiles in charge and told tribal councils that they wanted pedophiles in charge, and they would even supply them with the boys, not the Viagra. You've got to go see this for yourself. In 2015, in Afghanistan, soldiers and Marines were troubled that instead of weeding out pedophiles, the American military was arming them and in some cases placing them with the commanders of villages. That's the New York Times. So, remember that that's what they admit they're doing, and ask yourselves, do these people have any soul at all? And the answer is yes, they have a soul of evil. The people running the CIA now, probably always was this way, but the ones at the top and the ones doing this are absolutely corrupt and are using the abuse of children and using this psychic vampire behavior to basically create a network of pedophiles that they control. And it's the ultimate sin. And I told you this decades ago. And now it's out in the open. Just like it came out in Germany last year, it was finally in New Yorker magazine of all places last month, that 30,000+ children in just one city, it was all over Germany, after the U.S. took over Germany, after World War II, sit in psychologists and psychiatrists who said pedophilia is good for children and gave tens of thousands of children as young as 3 years old to convicted pedophiles, and they said we're creating a new form of love, NAMBLA, and that this is the new family. They would then hire the children out once they were trained at about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years of age to go to satanic rituals and orgies inside major churches and other facilities. And this is how they blackmailed and got control. So when you wonder why these politicians look so evil, when you wonder why they look so satanic and fake, why they're into such weird stuff, because many of the top politicians you see, particularly Democrats, major governors of West Coast states, are heavily into this. And the type of stuff that Ed Buck was doing, murdering black men in satanic rituals, and then calling it drug overdoses, is just the tip of the iceberg. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Go research it and look at it for yourself, and then you'll understand why the FBI is so satanic now, in that they would invert reality, and that they would then say that we attacked the Capitol when we tried to stop it, and even use our own video that shows we tried to stop it and tell a judge that we did the opposite on the video, as if the judge is too dumb to even look at it. But I guess that means they've got these judges in their pockets. I mean, why even put out fake evidence then? It's just crazy. Like, why would you put pedophiles in charge? Why would you rape little kids? Why would you cover it up? And I'm not saying the FBI is as bad as the CIA when it comes to this, but this group is taking over. This group is kicking the good people out of every system in America and every culture around the world and putting their evil people in. Now, let's tie this into big tech, because you've seen some of the lawsuits now dealing with Twitter, knowing let pedophilia and exploitation of children take place, child porn. And as bad as Twitter is, it's nothing compared to Google and YouTube and Facebook and Apple. And so it came out a few weeks ago that Apple is scanning all your photos and basically reading through your phone with AI systems, but also giving their own, quote, fact checkers and third parties that they hire access into your text messages, into your photos, into everything without a warrant, reviewing and tracking everything you do. That's pre-crime. That's the essence of tyranny. And of course, Apple is doing this in the name of stopping and fighting pedophilia. And Bill Maher had an excellent angle on just how asinine this is.
And finally, new rule: Apple needs to think different about our privacy. Apple, the company that made it possible for men to show their women their dicks from thousands of miles away, is releasing an update that will allow them to hack into your phone without your consent, to snoop through all your pictures just in case you're a pedophile. Or as Matt Gaetz put it, I'm switching to Samsung. Now, let me be clear. I'm against pedophilia. That's why I joined QAnon. But nosing through everybody's private photo stash is casting an awfully wide, intrusive net. It's like if the company that sold you a safe said, oh, and we're going to stop by sometimes when you're not home to make sure you're not keeping naked pictures of kids in it. Our phones should be like our wallets or purses, private.
Again, that is such a great analogy. It'd be like a safe company that sells people safes, but then it wants a backdoor access to it with a camera basically mounted inside the safe so it can make sure inside your safe you're not doing something bad. Our phones are extensions of ourselves. They tell us we have this privacy and it gives us all this freedom, but the truth is it is a globalist window or a tentacle into our lives, into our homes, and it's run by ruthless, evil, predatory groups like Tim Cook and Apple that run giant slave camps in China, the worst in the world, and put up suicide nets around their factories and have forced abortions and have their components made with millions of people in death camps like the Uyghurs. Oh, but if you tried to break into Tim Cook's house and surveil him, you get life in prison. But when he tells you, hey, I'm going to scan your photos and I'm going to read what you're writing and I'm going to listen to you, it's just one more level of Orwellian control that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. So the German government in every major city in Germany for decades placed tens of thousands of children per town and city with convicted child rapists to raise them into the pedophilia lifestyle and to use them to procure other children. And the CIA is doing the same thing, not just in Afghanistan, but around the world in similar things in its MK Naomi and MK Ultra projects that have been partially declassified. This is nothing but an excuse for evil satanic groups to operate under the cover of national security. And the CIA should be abolished. The National Security Act of 1947 should be abolished. And it's these groups that should be brought out into the light of day with a spotlight of investigation 100 times stronger than what we saw with Senator Frank Church's committee. It is this shadow government, it is this bureaucracy that interfaces with the corporations of the world that has become a breakaway civilization and is above the law, and is now telling us under the Great Reset, we're not essential, they're going to lock us in our houses and make us communicate with each other via virtual reality while they stir the third world to death and bring us forced inoculations. You see, the tyranny isn't coming. Tyranny's here, and it's only going to get worse until we start saying no to these people. And at the rock bottom of this is the abuse of children and innocents. That's what the Satanists want. In every wives' tale, in every culture, they warn about it. And in reality, it's there. And now it's out in the open, and the mask is off because we haven't stood up to it. they think it's their right to come after us. I had a very prominent doctor who's a Hasidic Jew on my show yesterday, and he has treated over 40,000 patients and saved them all when he's been able to get access to them. He saw many of his patients taken forcibly and put in quarantine and then intubated and killed. And he said this is a genocide that is taking place, and that it is occultic, and that it is pagan, and that's basically who Klaus Schwab is. And he's a renowned medical doctor, and he studied the history, and he understands it. And he basically talked about how this is modern child sacrifice now, that they're coming at our children for these experimental shots that have already killed so many people. It's one thing to pressure and push adults into doing something. That still violates the Nuremberg Code. But what they're doing is so much even more intense. So here's a couple big articles. Here's one out of RT, quoting the London Spectator magazine, off the UK government's own reporting system. 30,000 plus women having horrible menstrual cycles, sloughing, all sorts of bleeding. They basically can't have children right now because their uteruses are in total turmoil, and basically they're having their periods around the clock, so they can't get pregnant. Surprise, surprise. A lot of top scientists warned that looking at these vaccines when they first came out, so-called vaccines that would actually attack the uterus and the reproductive system. But of course, they had Snopes and others come out with no evidence to say that wasn't the truth. And now women across the world are seeing the full horror of, again, this ritualistic assault on their fertility. Again, on our children, on our future. All right, in closing, I want to thank you all for tuning in on this Saturday evening. I want to thank the crew for coming in as well. And I want to thank Dr. Boyle for coming on, and also to thank Owen for coming on the air and talking to us. Again, we taped it earlier. You're about to see it in the other studio. But understand this. We can